Hi. I'm on the phone. It's right back down. Now it's working. Hopefully not put down.
The problem is costs no better.
Well, they're all upgrading their system. So nothing's compatible until you upgrade to the new stuff.
We're going to wrap and roll. It's 7:02. I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All selectmen are present. We'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from our special meeting on January 9th. Are there any corrections?
I don't have it. I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of January 9, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion.
It should say January 9th, 2020, not 2019.
Yeah, that's a New Year thing. Thanks for that.
Right on the agenda.
Yeah, but
Someone's bound.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying on here.
I wrote 2007 on a check the other day.
Oh, my
but the information on the
minutes is correct, yeah.
All in favor of the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So carried. Public participation. This is one of...
Jason, I thought, was I need a second, was it Sales?
it was Alan.
What's the sign?
This is one of two opportunities for the public to weigh in throughout the course of the meeting. The floor is yours. Is there any public participation? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Jillian Hubbard, 40 Mill Street. I just came here tonight to let everybody know that's present or watching that we had a Keep America Beautiful organization community training event for the beautification committee at the Osborne House at 115 Scantic on Sunday. It's open to the public from 1 to 2. If anybody's interested in learning about the opportunities that the affiliation gives to benefiting the town of East Windsor.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Rebecca Talamini, 34 Rye Street. Several years ago, I did a shoe drive. I will be doing that shoe drive again. I still need to determine all of the locations for the drop-off boxes, but one of them will definitely be at the town hall. That will be starting in the middle of March and going through April. When I get flyers printed up, I'll have them be all over town, and I'll make sure that you guys get a copy of the flyer as well. I just wanted to let everybody know because people have already been asking me, so.
For history's sake, could you explain a bit about what the shoe drive benefits?
So the shoe drive benefits an organization called Souls for Souls. They're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and they donate shoes all over the world for those in need. If shoes are too non-wearable, they'll basically take the rubber down, whatever type of shoe it is, melt it down, use it for something else, so they recycle it anyway. They take new shoes, used shoes, kids, adults, every kind of shoe, flip-flops, slippers, you name it, because everybody needs something. And a single shoe, they even give shoes to amputees as well. So it's a great organization, so I'll have all the information on the flyers.
Good enough, thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
I'm Mike, 80 Rice Street, East Windsor. I'm speaking for the Economic Development Commission. I know tonight that you're accepting the resignation of our past chairman. That means that we're going to have 2 vacancies for that board right now. One is a full-time member and one is an alternate. And we've had at least 2 or 3 of the selectmen that are sitting on your board right now attend our meetings, talking about what great progress we've made recently in a short amount of time. So I'm encouraging you to help me recruiting 2 people that are really going to work with the Economic Development. Glad to meet with you privately and invite you to one of our meetings and discuss what the task at hand is. We got a lot of help from the first selectman. I've had some sidebars with him, and he's working with other towns for the purpose of getting economic development in our town with the help of how they do it in the rest of the region.
Thanks, Bob. Other comments? Seeing none, we will move on. In your packet, you'll find two communications. One is for the Museums on the Green at the Historical Society, and it's just kind of a promotional flyer that we've hung up in Town Hall. I wanted to make sure you guys saw it as well, and that it was included in our minutes. There is a lot of activity going on there with some really great plans for the future. There's a recent write-up in the Journal-Enquirer outlining some of that. So I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that that is a growing community resource with a lot of really exciting activities for all ages. So that's why that's included. The second thing is a letter I received from the Connecticut Water Company indicating their intention of replacing the facility, the Hunt Water Treatment Plant, which is on Mahoney Road. They're required by statute to notify us that that is what their plans are, and so that's what they've done, but information on the project is included in the communications. Next, I lost my agenda. Resignations and appointments. So the first one is Jessica Bottomley, who's been a very active member of the East Windsor Historic Preservation Commission for some time. She's decided not to seek reappointment, so she's submitted a letter notifying us as such.
I move to accept the resignation of Jessica Bottomley from the East Windsor Historic Preservation Commission.
With
Second.
regret.
With regret.
Motion been made by Charlie, seconded by Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor of the acceptance of the resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered.
We'll move to accept the resignation of Eric Moffett from the Economic Development Commission with regret.
Regret secondly.
Sorry to see that.
Me too.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the resignation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered. Next there are no reappointments, so we're on to new appointments. In your packet, you will have every application I've received from the public interested in serving on the Charter Revision Commission, as well as Steve Smiths, who's interested in filling a vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll make a motion to appoint Kurt Cutshall to the Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19, 2021.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not signed.
We'll accept it as is.
Okay. Just pointing that out.
He has some limitations.
Oh,
There's not an issue.
Okay.
All in favor of appointing Kurt to the Charter Revision Commission?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Make a motion to accept Ruth Ann Lasner to the Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? So ordered.
Make a motion to make a motion to appoint Rick Laborious to the Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19, 2021.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. I love Rick. He's been a great asset to this town. But I will be voting no on this application. I feel that with his experience and expertise that he will automatically become chair of this commission. And I feel it's a conflict of interest being also the chair of a public political committee.
So that's a standard you would apply universally?
Yes.
Fair enough. Further discussion?
Is that accurate? Is Bob Leach chairman of the police commission? And he's a political activist and chair of his political party.
He was elected, though. This is appointed.
Right. And there's other circumstances with that as well. This is our town's charter. This isn't running the police department.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I vote yes.
Make a motion to appoint James Richard to the Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
I'll move to appoint Steve Smith to Zoning Board of Appeals for a term expiring November 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for stepping forward. So it's just for the benefit of the public, that's an elected position, and so we needed to fill that or incur the cost of a special election to fill it, so that there is somebody who's volunteered to forego that needless expense is appreciated. So, thank you, Steve. You must have missed the meeting where they were deciding who it was going to be.
Oh, no, I was in the meeting, the other part was left out.
I'd like a tax rebate then to save on the special election.
We'll have to check the registers at the end of the meeting. It's always a surprise.
Just realize a true volunteer always costs the money.
I'll be getting pizza from Village Pizza Too.
I move to appoint Rebecca Talamini to Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19th, 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? So carried.
I move to appoint Tanya Unsworth to Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19th, 2021.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? So carried.
I'll move to appoint Nicole Vasilla to the Charter Revision Commission for a term expiring June 19th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? So carried.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not. If it's not, say so. But I received,
Yeah, from Joel. I was going to touch on that.
I received an email from Joel Whalen.
So the suggestion was brought forward by a member of the community who often watches these meetings on the YouTube channel, but isn't able, due to family circumstances, isn't able to come to the meetings, that he'd like to encourage the Charter Revision Commission to use this room and use the recording equipment so that it can be shared more broadly. That's something I absolutely hope the commission will consider doing, and we can work to make sure that the room is available when you guys have set your meeting dates, so that we're able to be as transparent as we can be. Yes, ma'am.
The previous date, I think it was the third Wednesday of every month with the beautification ad in 2019, is open for the town hall because we are meeting at the Osborne House, so if that's still open, it might be.
We'll work with, once they get themselves established, we'll work to make sure that there is thank you for that, but we'll look to make sure they have availability. And it's a short-term duration too, it's just till probably Labor Day.
Can I ask one more question? I know we've made the appointment and the terms are to 2021. Are you going to encourage them to try to resolve the issue prior to the November election?
I think we did that in the charge.
We did that, yeah, I just want to make sure it's in the charge.
My recollection is that it is. I know we
Okay.
discussed it a couple times.
Okay.
Okay. 8A, discussion of an audit exemption for the Broadbrook Library. This is something that Mr. Anderson had raised via electronic communication that he was taking umbrage to the fact that we were requiring it. We have the opportunity to waive it. You all decided you wanted to postpone that conversation until this meeting. So what's your plan? Yes, Sarah.
I'm mindful of the fact that we're insisting that the library expend funds that they may not have budgeted for, but I feel that if they are seeking funds from the town and based on the policy that's in our charter, I think that they should comply, in my opinion.
Other comments?
I think they've, I don't know if you've seen, most of us probably have, seen their budget every year. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of a one-pager. They have generally no money. I don't really see like doubling the size of their budget. Literally, we'll have to we'll have to pay for that, right? We will have to put the money in there for them to have the audit, and they don't have the money right now. So I don't really see any need for it. Board of Finance has given money to the library on a number of occasions without the audit. This has been done for a lot of the smaller kind of organizations. So for me, I don't think it's really necessary.
Right.
The only, I don't have a problem exempting them, and there's a couple other as I said last meeting. But in lieu of the audit, I would have liked to at least have a financial statement. And that has not been unusual in the past because they have one anyways, or should have one anyways.
Any thoughts?
Do they use outside accounting firm or no?
I don't know the answer to that.
No.
Paul says they do not. So, there seems to have been an idea advanced to continue the practice. There's been an idea advanced to waive the practice, and there's been an idea advanced to kind of meet in the middle and just ask for a financial statement, which to me seems like a reasonable place to land. Other ideas? So I'm really trying to keep things on this side of the table when we do these meetings. Is it something material?
Yeah.
What do you got?
It is. The statement that I provided, taking exception, was based on any, according to the letter, anybody who requests funding of $15,000 or more, no matter how much or little they get. That's where I think the failure is. That was the whole point.
Well,
if you're asking, if I get asked for $100,000, you give me $1, I still have to give you an audit. It doesn't make sense. It should be based on how much money you get.
And at this point in the process, we don't have any idea how much anybody is going to get, which is why there was a request for...
But you've got historical data.
So you're saying we would rather have it be done based on the current year budget, not the proposed budget?
Well, okay, now you have a fiscal year starting July 1, and we have a calendar year starting January 1. So all this is a lot of fun. It just doesn't work in my head. The request for funds has little to do with how much you end up with, and therefore, what triggers the audit. I have gotten 0 in some years, and if you want an audit based on 0 contribution, that's not going to happen. And I just don't see the value in that. That was my point. The ordinance requires audits regardless of every department, agency, no matter what. So the letter was fine, but the request problem is that's where I had the problem, and that's what I stated. I took exception to the request.
So one of the things we could do is...
Give me a lot of money and I'll have an audit. How's that?
We could wait and see what the budget proposal from the library and recommendation from me includes, and then you guys could make a decision at that point whether that's sufficient to meet your concerns or any concerns you may have. And the Board of Finance could do the same.
Could we look at rectifying the ordinance as well?
Sure, that's absolutely something we could do.
I don't have a problem with
Because
that.
in a way, I have to agree with Paul, that there's, if you request, $50,000, but you only get 5,000, the ordinance should reflect a request on what you've received from the town in the past, not what you've asked for.
can, I have a list going of ordinances that I think we ought to revisit. I do. I went through them all, and some of them have jumped out in bad need of some TLC. So I'll add that to the list of things that we're working on. Okay.
We need to move.
Nope, we can just move right along. The next thing is that we have some guests tonight. Art Enderle and Ed Alabozic from WPCA. When I first took office, I made a point of going around and visiting each of the departments and agencies in the town, just to introduce myself and make sure that I was developing a dialogue. And offer that they made at that point was that they'd love to come and share with the board and the community a bit about what the WPCA and the sewer plant does. And so I've taken them up on that, and I'm going to turn the floor over to them for their presentation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us to come here this evening. One thing I did want to mention was that, the WPCA is typically out of sight, out of mind, because most of what we do is located underground. Nobody really thinks about it, nobody really sees it, nobody really thinks about it until something doesn't work. And as I like to say, we're the only defense between the flush and the river. So with that, Ed's put together a nice PowerPoint presentation. This is something that we put together recently for our WPCA. And again, you'll see we have the WPCA, WPCF. Ed and I are the WPCF. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Richards are the WPCA. So they're the authority under which we report to. So state statute allows them to set forth policies, instructions, management practices, so on and so forth, as to how the facility is to be operated. And so that leaves it to Ed and I. So I'll let you take it from there, Ed.
Sure. So part of what we do is we treat anything you're going to put down your drain, through your bathtub, septic tanks within town, all the industry or commercial developments, everything that's going into the sewer system, down a drain, is going to end up down on South Water Street for us to treat. We're going to do a very, very good job. We've got a long, long record of high standards, and that water is going to be released into the Connecticut River, which through the period of time, May through September, is a recreational grade river, water body, where people are going to swim, they're going to canoe, they're going to fish. Very, very important. Our plant, most of you, I can recognize a lot of faces, and we do have Jim Barton too, who's a past member of the WPCA. The plant, as constructed, was built in 1996. So originally 1967 through 1969, the Clean Water Act was starting. Wastewater treatment plants were built in communities. Art's going to go touch on a bit of that, on why there's a little bit of a dependency upon WPCAs, WPCFs, to have their own budget, to raise their own funds, and why that's important. To function as autonomous as possible while still being under an umbrella of a town or municipality. That 2.5 million, we're running at about 40 to 50% capacity still, and we're about 23, 24 years into this facility. So if we back up a bit, what's one of the things you can notice right off the bat, Art, that's going to show that we've got some capacity.
We've got an empty tank right there.
Right. So the oxidation ditch, it's only a computer screen, granted it's a large screen, but this section of this oxidation ditch holds 1.29 million gallons of wastewater. All right, so we have to double it, and we're getting to that 2.5. The lesson is we're running at about 40%, 42%, 44%. We want things to come into this town. Things such as, whether it's Calamar, West River Farms, whether it's the casino, one of the things that had sort of put up a stop sign with other communities was, did they have capacity at their wastewater treatment plants? So one of the things I know Art's going to get into, he's way more proficient at this than I'm going to be, is you look around at Enfield, South Windsor, Suffield, Windsor Locks, Windsor, Quantick, Vernon, and Manchester. They've all done huge, huge upgrades, anywhere from $40 to $80 million. So we built what we had in this town back in the early 90s at about $10.8 million. And here we are 23, 24 years later, and we're still at half capacity, which doesn't mean we made a blunder back in the early 90s. It means the engineers did a really, really thoughtful, forward-looking job to make sure this is going to be a community that's going to be, if maintained well, and that's part of our job tonight, is to hopefully have everyone entrust us in that we are maintaining this well. We feel we've got a long period of time of showing success. We're going to be good for the next 10, 15, hopefully 20 years without having to put out those 40, 50, 60, 70, $80 million repairs or rebuilds. You want to talk a little bit about what's underground, Art, as far as how the sewage gets here?
Yeah, so it's not just a treatment plant. We have to have the ability to get it from wherever it is right now to the treatment plant. So we have 10 outlying sewage pump stations. You probably know some little brick buildings located around town. Well, there's about 35 miles of sewers and force mains that transmit and convey all that wastewater, even from here, all the way down to the treatment plant on South Water Street. And so unfortunately, like all infrastructure, it's aged. It doesn't really get the attention it needs. Worse for us is that it's out of sight, it's out of mind. You can't really see it, it's buried. So we spent a lot of time doing investigations and a lot of closed circuit television into the sewer lines to assess the condition. And because you were asking before the meeting started, Jason, like how long do we have to respond? Well, we don't really have any time to respond. We have to, can't always know what's going to happen, but we try to prepare for it. Because when things do happen in our world, they're not good. Okay? So we spent a lot of time, and I know Ed's going to go through this in the coming slides, but he's got it right there too. We've gone from reactive to preventive to proactive to predictive. So we do a lot of modeling, we have a lot of trending, so we have a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, when it comes to wastewater plants, that's why you see all these surrounding plants going through these multi-million-dollar upgrades. 20 years is kind of like what the state put out there as to how long these places should last. Well, Ed and I don't agree with that. So we're probably the exception to the rule. We believe that if you maintain it and keep in good operating condition, it's much better to keep things in shape than it is to get them in shape. There's a lot of things that come into this. If you can't get spare parts, if they don't make the stuff anymore, so we're aware of all that. So we take a look at all that. And so we have tried really, really hard to get as much life and as much usage out of the equipment as we can. When we do replace something, we plan it ahead of time so we can replace it when we can take it out of service as opposed to crisis management kind of thing. So, and I know, Jason, when you came on board, I hear you talk a lot about economic development.
I do.
That's good, because I've heard you. And Ed and I have talked all the time about we don't want it to be lost on the fact that we, being at 40% capacity, is really good for the town for economic development. Because there are a lot of towns that are at capacity, either at the plant or within the sewer lines that can't get the sewage to where it needs to go. And I believe that's one reason, right, wrong, or otherwise, why the casino selected East Windsor. Because we are what's considered a wet town. They can come in, connect, and they got a place to send it. That's extremely valuable. And so that's one thing that Ed and I have done. We've done a lot of research, a lot of mapping, a lot of looking where the sewers are, where things could be serviced, and so on and so forth. So we believe that if we continue on the path we're on, we can really assist the town with economic development. We would just kind of like to be maybe moved a little bit rather than being at the end of the pipe. We'd rather get a seat at the table maybe, just so that we could help you in the town in your quest for economic development. So, yeah.
Can you talk about some of the things that happen in the admin building, outside in the different buildings we have? So we do a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, very few people know what it is we do down there, because nobody really wants to go visit the sewer plants, so to speak. But they don't call them sewer plants anymore. They call them water resource recovery facilities, because water is so valuable. water's an infinite resource. We have all we're ever going to have. All we do is continue to recycle it. The Connecticut River is one of the Scannick River, Connecticut River here at East Windsor, very valuable resource. So we have highly skilled, trained, certified, educated people that work there. We're not the typical Ed Norden that people tend to think about. So we're responsible for probably $75 to $90 million of infrastructure, rotating equipment, and so we have to keep all that running. We cannot let anything fail. So one of the things we do our own in-house billing. You came down, Jason, you met Laura.
Yep, she's great.
Yep, so we're very self-sufficient. We do a lot of information technology, instrumentation, PLC, SCADA, which is supervisory control and data acquisition. Everything we do revolves around technology. We have a full on-site laboratory. We do GIS, we do mapping. Ed's a real expert in GIS, so we do the videography of the collection system. We've mapped all our sewer lines. We provide reports, financial, to the WPCA. I have to report to EPA and DEP on a regular basis. We have permit limits we have to meet. So it's a really, really involved thing. One of the things we did want to touch upon was on our project management. I've been here about 10 years now. I've known Ed for, I guess, 30 years now. We've been friendly and known each other through our work together. And so when I came here 10 years ago, it was really easy because I kind of knew where I was coming. I knew who I was going to be working with. So Ed and I look at things differently than a lot of other wastewater treatment plants. We're really concerned with the fact that the sewer users come right through our building, just like to come up here to pay their taxes. So we take that really quite seriously. So we want to be a good steward of their money because it's not ours, it's theirs. Okay. So we have successfully completed major projects over a sustained period of time. And this is going back about 8-9 years now. The WPCA engaged an engineering firm, do a rate study, take a look at where we were, what we needed, how we were going to go forth. And it really shed light on the fact that our rates were going to continue to increase at an exponential rate. And Ed and I weren't really happy with that. So we approached our WPCA back at the time. And we went to them with a plan. We said, we believe that we can complete these projects ourselves. Ed and I probably have 75 years experience just between the two of us. So we've been through a lot of this. Within our timeline, affordably and thoroughly. We're not afraid of challenges. And here was the key thing is, you've heard Ed mention all the other plants are going through all these large upgrades. That's what we were looking at. We were looking at having to spend $10 million in the next 10 years and pay it back on a 20-year note. That doesn't really sit well with me. So what we've done over the past 10 years is to not take on any new debt, pay as we go. And the fact that WPCA has confidence in us. We started off slowly, but we've shown that we are capable of doing this. We can save a ton of money. We can complete the tasks that needed to be done. And an important thing here is understanding our user charge system. So we have to abide by a lot of different regulations, state statutes, financial standards, so on and so forth. So we're guided by this thing called the Cost of Clean Water. It's the Connecticut DEP Sewer User Charge Survey and Guidance Manual. To me, it's my Bible. I know statutes, I know the manual like the back of my hand, because I have to. So what that does, it mandates that the user charge is a revenue-generating system designed to recover all the costs of operating and maintaining a wastewater treatment plant. When we take it a step further, we go from operating and maintaining to repair and replacement, because we feel that the rates should cover, you don't just run it for 20 years and then apply to DEP for a $40 million loan. And again, we're required to do all this because we get annual inspections, sometimes a semi-annual. And they will come down and look at the equipment, interview us, walk the plant to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so it's also to ensure that preventive maintenance is routinely performed, because we had an inspection. Can we put that slide in about the CMOM? There's an acronym called CMOM. It's called Capacity Management Operation and Maintenance. It's an EPA mandate, and EPA started coming around to all the Connecticut treatment plants because there was a lot of sanitary sewer overflows, sewer backups, and they were questioning, why is this happening? We have equipment, we have people, we have resources. Well, lo and behold, all the equipment was sitting idle, gathering dust. Nobody was going out monitoring this stuff. So they came out, Connecticut DEP came out and did an inspection 2 days with Ed and I at our plant. And they went through everything, all the records, went out to pump stations, on site. It was pretty exhausting. By the time they were done, when they left East Windsor, their actual quote was, now we know what can be accomplished at other treatment plants. So we kind of raised the bar for them. And again, we're just East Windsor. We don't have a lot of money, we don't borrow large amounts of money, we just kind of do what we can do. And so they've always used East Windsor as kind of the high water mark. We have a lot of folks come down to our plant to see what we do, how we do it, because the DEP recommends that, hey, go down and talk to Art and Ed. They've got this, so they hold us as a model plant, which I think really bodes well for town of East Windsor. I think it's really nice. And go ahead.
It is, Art, and one of the things that I think helps is, so you're given this plant at whatever year in your life, and you've got a good, a good staff and people who believe that this is going to be our career, we want to make a life out of this. And you're given more equipment than you need. You're running at 25 or 33%. So one of the things we tried to practice right from day one was good maintenance habits. We changed all the oils that come with a typical pump or a blower, and we went to synthetic lubricants back in the mid-90s. So pumps, motors that typically we see in this field would last 8, 10, 12 years. We're now into past 20 years with most of our same motors. Granted, we're on routine of pulling one out a year, getting it totally rebuilt, putting it back in. You look at our budget, you may see a rebuild of a big 34 horsepower motor is going to run us $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, but that's every 5 or 6 years. We had an accident with a hoist let go, and one of the motors actually crashed 35 feet below. That to replace was about $35,000. So if you start to think about, if you want to make this affordable, if you want to make it last, do you want to repair something where you know it's going to be a fixed cost, $8,000 to $10,000, you've got 5 pumps, you can do 1 a year. By the time you get to that 5th year, you're rolling over again, and these things are going to last 30, 40 years. Or you can you can do nothing, and every 12 years buy $30,000 pumps and motors. So that, and the other thing that I think is really, really important that we can do in wastewater, I don't know if it applies to any other field, because honestly I don't know much else about anything otherwise, is we have a lot of redundancy and we'll rotate equipment.
Yes.
So keeping things on for 6 months, removing it, going to another side, running that, keeping hours equal. A lot of places will run one piece of equipment into the ground for over several years, and then they're going to replace that piece of equipment. Again, it looks like it's the easy way, and I guess one of the things we try to pride ourselves on is we're not worried about doing things the hard way.
No.
The hard way has worked. It's given us real longevity in this facility. We're hoping that, I guess what we're hoping for is everyone leaves here tonight, you're not going to remember all these details. It's way too much, and it's going to be too much technical, basically overload. But what we want you to think about is this facility that is yours on South Water Street was built in the mid-90s. We're now in 2020, and we're still, the functionality of it and the structure of it is still very, very sound. And you do that by, taking care of it. It'd be the same as Art makes an analogy a lot of times of a house.
Right.
You can buy a house, you can do nothing to it, it's going to look pretty rough in 15 years. Same with a wastewater plant, except everything's accelerated.
Yeah, and so that brings up a really good point there. So,
But before you change the slide, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
You guys need to sing your own praises about the NUIA award.
Oh, okay, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that is up on top there. It was the 2020 New England Water Environment Association.
Which is the industry standard, prestigious award. That's the Oscar.
Oh, yeah, this is all of New England. We received the award and it was given to us for outstanding performance of a wastewater division in the New England area. So out of all the New England states, we were selected. We had a couple of professional engineers come down, executive director of the Cromwell Mattabasic District, talk to us, look at how we do our job, look at our best practices, best management practices. And so, yeah, lo and behold, myself and Paul are going on Wednesday up to Boston to receive the award. So I mean, that was pretty prestigious. And again, back in 2004, East Windsor also received the United States EPA award for Region 1, and at the same time, I was working in Canton at the time. My plant received it for a small advanced wastewater facility. So, I mean, thank you for bringing that up, because it's not something that most people would even understand.
Well, you guys, I noticed you were going to turn the page without talking about, you know, the top achievement in the industry, so that's a great accomplishment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, just a couple other things is, you know, now that you bring it up, for the past 6 years, I've run this thing called the Connecticut Wastewater Management Leadership Program. We've graduated over 100 people from that program. And again, our graduates just from East Windsor have been Steve Bednarz, John Ferens, and Catherine Nealon. I do a lot of the instruction. Ed also comes in as an instructor, so it's just one more thing that gets us out there in DEP and EPA, see what we're doing to train the next people to come on board. So, thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Oh, you want to talk about the staff?
Yeah. So again, there's 9 of us that work there. I'm the superintendent, Ed is the chief operator. We have Conrad, who's our process control operator. He's been there 25 years. We have Steve Spellman, which is our solids operator. He's been there 25 years. We have Laura Michaels, been there almost 20 years now. She's our office manager. Mark Brennan's our plant mechanic. Steve Bednar's been there 14 years. Mark Brennan, probably 12 years. And then I've been there going on 10 years. John Ferens, 10 years. And then Catherine Nealon, just around 7 years right now. So out of that, we all have to be licensed. It's required by the state of Connecticut that we are licensed, have to pass certain standards. And so there's 4 different levels of licenses. Minimum is a 1, the highest in Connecticut is a class 4. So I'm a class 4 operator. Ed, along with 3 of our other folks, are class 3 operators. And we're a class 3 plant, so we don't need a class 4 operator. I just so happen to be a class 4 operator. We have 2 class 2s and 1 class 1. We have, between our 9 folks, we have 6 associate's degrees, 3 bachelor's degrees, and 1 master's degree. So the bar is continually getting raised for what we do because of the technology that's associated with it. So it's not your father's wastewater plant any longer. It's really, really taken a turn. So, okay. So some of our successful major upgrades over the past 9 years have been, we've got 10 sewage pump stations. Some of our pump stations were relatively aged. I remember, Marie, when I think we were doing the North Road, I think you were on the board of selectmen at the time, you asked some really direct questions about, are you telling us that this pump station is ready to fail? And I think I remember saying, yes, it could fail at any moment. That's kind of where a lot of this started. So we've since gone on, upgraded 8 of our 10 pump stations. Now, Ed and I will tell you, we're not about being fancy, we're about being functional and practical. So we'll put the money where it really needs to be. And so that's what we have done. And believe it or not, those are real numbers, okay? So as Paul knows, and Jim Barden, and he was on the commission at the time, when we were given engineers' estimates for what it was going to cost to do these stations, that was the engineer's estimate. And again, most time, that's just the beginning. It doesn't go down. It tends to grow.
And one of the problems with that estimate was only for 2 pump stations.
Exactly. It was only for 2. We've done 8. So we've done all 8 so far for that $385,000 because the commission has faith in us that we act as a contractor and hire subcontractors. We buy the equipment, we get what we want, not what somebody wants to sell us. we kind of cut out the engineering because we work with the manufacturers, reps with their engineers. And as I like to say, if Ed and I don't know the right pump to buy, then you shouldn't employ Ed and I. Okay, so here are some of our major highlights that we've done. The industrial park pump station upgrade, the Mill Pond pump station upgrade, our area control panel, we talked about SCADA. Our plant is controlled by technology and by computers. But we also have to need to know how to run it if the computers fail. Because we have had a number of failures, things happen. Valve replacements. So, I mean, these are all projects that we took on as a contractor. We hired subcontractors, and that's why we were able to do it for so much less money. And,
The area control panel. So we have 4 separate area control panels throughout the facility on South Water Street. All the pumps, motors, everything's controlled through there. It's going to feed back to the admin building. And you heard our mention earlier, SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. Just a fancy name, basically for your process controls, your instrumentation. So of these 4, most times you're going to hire an engineering firm to come in, and they're going to look at them and they're going to want to do them all at once, right? And that's going to cost you $1 million, $2 million. So we had in our old ACP panels, we had Siemens components.
Yeah.
So what we knew is, well, we can't really spend $1 million or even $500,000 in 1 year. So what we did is we did one at a time over 4 years. And this is how we do most of our stuff, most of our upgrades.
Yeah.
So that meant when we took the pieces out, the parts out of that first ACP panel, because all the components were now 20 years old, we now knew we had good parts. They were used, and they might have been at their getting close to their useful life.
They became spares for the other 3
Exactly.
existing ACP.
So that would go on the shelf. The next year we do a second. Now we had 2 sets of spares, and we had a failure at one
Yes.
for our solids loading.
Yeah.
We had the main PLC go out, and that would have shut down all our getting rid of our sludge, which would be, if no one
That's not
can
good.
imagine that, that'd be a very, very bad thing. We were down about 20 minutes because we knew. I said, oh, we've got 2 on the shelf. We grabbed the spare from the other one. We put it in, set all the little buttons where they needed to be, and we were back in business. Where a lot of times, you know, if you're at the guidance of a big firm, you don't
say the Mercy. You're at the Mercy.
Mercy,
Yeah.
guidance was,
That's okay, yeah, that's okay.
my trying to be polite. So that's one of the things, whether we're looking at these ACP panels, if we're looking at pumps, we might do one pump 1 year, the second pump 2 years later. 4 years later, we'll buy a spare pump so we can rotate. So one of the things I think to be thrifty is to look at a project, look at the duration, and extend. If you can extend it over time, it becomes affordable where we, as a department, we haven't had to do what? We haven't had to take on
Borrowing
debt.
money, and no debt, right, which is highly unusual. And so I wanted to point this out because I give Ed credit for this because we have taken advantage, Ed has taken advantage of a lot of grants, financial opportunities, and some insurance claims because we leave no stone unturned. We're not too proud to ask, okay? So we've taken advantage of Northeast Utilities Small Business Energy Advantage. Started out as a lighting program. We ended up replacing VFDs, and so that was huge.
What is a VFD?
Variable frequency drive. And the Northeast Utility Electrical Incentive Program, again, that was an expansion upon the original lighting program. When we did the North Road, Route 140, that originally was the American Reinvestment.
Recovery and Reinvestment.
Thank you, Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And so that took care of the pump station and a SCADA upgrade, which it was not initially intended to do. We did the first phase of North Road, we had money left over. So we wanted to get as much pipe in the ground as we could, and then rather than using the money for, I don't mean to say frivolous, but for things we really didn't need, we approached them in, at that time, our pump stations were not coming back to the plant. So they paid to bring North Road online for the first one, and that kind of set up with all the hardware to bring the other stations online. And then we had the ARA, the grant from USDA for the sewer line extension, and then Ed took advantage of a FEMA grant. I was here at a staff meeting 4 or 5 years ago with Ed, and it was mentioned that there was a possibility, and I remember we left the meeting because we were told, well, the deadline's midnight tonight. Ed worked on it. About 11:30 that night, he submitted it. Well, we got it. Okay. It was, what, $45,000 there? Yeah. So we had to kick in 25%. So $15,000, we got $60,000 worth of equipment. So Kerma claims, we have had a number of insurance claims, contractors at fault, back on Prospect Hill, lightning strikes. Ed mentioned the faulty hoist where the $35,000 pump dropped 35 feet and got demolished. That was a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of time went into that. And then the FEMA damage claims with Hurricane Irene and Winter Storm Alfred, that was huge. We received a lot of money back from that.
Yeah, we know the importance of just keeping notebooks, documentation. So all our people know, whatever they're doing, we need to record it. We record it into, digitally. We're still, a lot of us are still really big fans of just keeping notebooks to carry around. Because you never know when you're going to get called upon to have proof, and you want to be able to provide something. Taking opportunities when they arise, you have to be ready, and sometimes you have to give up a little of what you'd like to do for what's more important at that time. So when we saw earlier, we saw the pump stations. $1.9 million estimate, and that's
two pump stations.
That was two pump stations. That was a real number. And then you saw we were able to do it for 385. Well, a lot of that is because when grant opportunities were there, we jumped at it. And what I'd say to our WPCA is they've been very, very helpful in that they've been trusting.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
And so when we come up and say, hey, we have this opportunity to do this, we're not really budgeted. It's a 75-25 share. Our WPCA's been at least forward-thinking, I would say, enough to say, you guys would be, idiots not to. So we've had their backing, their support. I always say, like, sooner or later things go bad. Sometimes it's not going to be our fault. You do your best and the answer's still no. Sometimes that happens. We've been on I'd say a good streak lately, but sooner or later something's going to come back and it's going to be a no. Not because it's lack of effort or we weren't, trying hard enough or bright enough. Sometimes just things happen. Somebody's got a better project or something that's more meaningful. So the numbers are good numbers. We've been doing this. We've been on this kick for 10 years. So not a year has gone by in 10 that we haven't done. What's your annual budget for large
$200,000.
$200,000.
So, we do a lot of planning. Ed and I do an incredible amount of planning, but what that does, it allows us not to get in a predicament like the white dogs rarely survive shipwrecks, okay? But that really is true. So we spend a lot of time with our budget, with our commission, doing workshops because we're trying to do the best that we can do. And we're not perfect, we're going to make mistakes. But we find that having a long-term plan really helps us out. And it all comes down to the money. It all comes down to finances. And, we don't want to borrow money because I've seen all the area plans and what they're doing, and I happen to live in Enfield, the next town over. And I'm not really happy with what's going on there. But I just want to talk about that briefly because they're doing an upgrade, and they borrowed money. Okay, it's a 20-year, 2% state revolving fund loan. Okay, so when you borrow the state's money, I call it the golden rule, because if you want the gold, you got to play by the rules. Well, it's never enough money. But 2% seems like really good money, right? You can't get 2% from anybody else. Every $1 million you borrow is $60,000 in debt service. And nobody borrows $10 million. They borrow 40, 50. That's like the minimum. So in Enfield's case, to pay back that debt, and by the by the way, my rates have just doubled because they realized that that wasn't enough money, so they just levied another $190 surcharge. So what it comes down to is if Windsor borrows $35 million, just that debt service for the next 20 years is $2.1 million a year. That's our annual budget. Infield's budget before the debt service was $4 million a year. So now they're realizing that there's not enough money. We don't want to get into that. Vernon is just $70 million upgrade. I mean, you don't get a lot for your money because there's a lot of paperwork and design and yada, yada, yada that goes into this stuff. So what we're trying to do is actually buy equipment and not just buy somebody's time to do a study. So I think long-term that's really working out well for us. We have no debt. Our clean water loan has been paid off. We don't have any existing debt right now. We're kind of on pay-as-you-go, and it's worked out fairly well so far. I don't think it's going to go on forever, but we're taking advantage of it as long as we can. We're going to ride that until we can. So
I think you can open it up to questions.
Sure.
No question. One more thing I want to point out. When we do our own work down there, rather than having a contractor come in and put in equipment we don't know anything about. And when they get all done, they say, push the green button. If anything goes wrong, call us. We do it ourselves, our own people. They do the wiring, they get involved with the wiring and the physical installation and all the details with all the manufacturer's specs. When they get done, they know the equipment inside and out.
There's a value in that.
So that means when there's a problem, you don't call somebody else. You take one of your own people and they go look at it. If it's beyond them, so you call somebody. But most of your problems get solved because your own employees have the knowledge of the entire system, inside and out. And that has been probably the biggest benefit going. It's one thing to save money, it's something else to not have problems become big problems. They stay small problems. And that's been probably number one right there. So we have a functional plant because no matter what happens, we have people in-house who understand.
Anything else, Sid?
I have a question, Bob Light from 80 Rice Street again. You guys seem to have an extremely well-managed and operated system as far as employees are concerned.
Thank you.
What do you do for human resources and employee evaluations and raises?
You kind of looking at the two of us.
Really?
That's a really funny, because Art came from a situation, I hope I don't embarrass you.
No, you can't.
He came from a situation where you had evaluations and they didn't go so well.
No.
Not that he was doing not a great job, but just the way evaluations are, you get a 1 through 5, and
Yeah.
if you get too high on one, that means you're going to be getting too much money. So I said to Hart one day, I said, hey, rather than let evaluations and make some people feel good and some not so
Exactly,
good,
right.
why don't we just call them pathways?
Yeah.
And we'll just sit people down and we'll ask them, what's going well, and what do you do that's fantastic for us? And then we'll tell you,
We can give you some
what we're
guidance.
thinking we want to see you push forward with.
So there was no numerical score with them, Bob. Because I assume you were in the military, right? So 4.0, everybody wants a 4.0. Well, the problem is, you get a 4.0 and the other guy gets a 3.2. He's not really happy because he doesn't. So by going this route here, we got our employees' feedback. And so we're trying to help them improve and give them some guidance and some goals.
So you two individually or together as a team leaders determine remuneration programs and
We have I think our board could even speak of it. We came up with a step program. We came up with 20 steps, whereas employees provided more value to the system, to the facility. And they weren't easy steps to maintain.
No.
It was becoming experts at certain areas of the field within East Windsor. Because honestly, what happens outside East Windsor, I don't have any interest in it.
Right.
It's within
What
those
happens
walls.
right here,
So I like to say I kind of come with the facility, and I hope you guys allow me to keep doing that for a little bit. But our pathway, our STEP program was an incentive-filled program, which wasn't much. Each step was worth 15 cents, but it's been going on now in its second year. Our board re-upped it again for this season we're currently in, and it's nice I think it's nice for employees not only to get the monetary reward, which helps, but it's also a way of saying, I can now get into solids handling, or I can do disinfection because I've learned that. I can take care of the return pumps because I've been trained on that, and I'm above adequate. I'm an expert at this. Do you have anything to respond on that, Art?
No, I just want to say I first heard about that from MDC. I was directing the managers program, had a lot of folks from MDC, and MDC is just massive. It's mammoth. And so I was asking them, because at our plant, all our guys do everything. We're small, so you have to be a jack of all trades. But at MDC, you're stuck into one thing. And so one of the guys mentioned that he was going to go from being a supervisor or being at one plant to go back to the main plant because he could make more money. I says, what do you mean? He says, well, if the guy on primary calls out and I've been checked off on primary, I can do his job on the next shift. I said, what do you mean checked off? So he started explaining to me all the different areas of the plant and how you get kind of checked off as a specialty, laboratory, pump station, so on and so forth. So I mentioned to Dad and I said, you know, we have to look into this. So we did, because I didn't want to just reward our people with a raise and then they could say, oh, give me the money, then we'll do it. No, it's like, you show us and prove to us you can do it, and then we'll reward you. 15 cents doesn't seem like a lot, but they can get 30 cents within a quarter. So, you know, and it's worked out very well because we have very, very qualified people now. And that was the one thing, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but the state of the industry in which we work, in the next 10 years, half of the people in water and wastewater are going to be retiring if they haven't retired already. 1972 was the advent of the Clean Water Act. There was no modern water pollution prior to 1972, so this is a relatively new thing. So we're not finding people coming into this field. And, I'm a little bit concerned, Ed's a little bit concerned, because you want to retain your employees. You want to train them well enough so that they can leave, but you want to treat them well enough so that they don't want to. So that's exactly what we're trying to do, and I think that's why we have what we have, people staying there, because they do feel they are part of the operation. I believe the WPCA, they've always treated me and my staff as we're assets, not liabilities, and in return, I think we owe it to them to prove that we are worthy of. So we get the whole package, and it's been that way for 10 years now, and I don't see why it won't continue long after Ed and I are gone. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build it.
I don't want to belabor this, but I want to say shortly, you've got such longevity, people liking their jobs, and people being, you're different than some other departments in town where we train them and train them to be better, cross-train them, and they go somewhere else, to another town, to another area for that. We really need to take good cognizant values in that.
Well, I've worked in a number of other places, Bob, and it's not easy to get that ingrained. When we talk about it being a culture, culture is the hardest thing to change in a society. But we kind of, rather than lower the standard, we raise the bar, but then we give them the tools they need to get up to that next level. And who benefits? The WPCA and the town. The town benefits, because the last thing I want to leave you with, what we do is relatively unknown. Not many people want to go down there, no people want to really talk about it, but we perform one of the most vital services. There's nothing better for a community to have a well-operated and maintained wastewater treatment facility, because they claim that in the last century, the life expectancy has doubled due to clean water. Because 10,000 people a day die due to poor sanitation, poor hygiene, poor water, cholera, epidemics, things like that, because the third world countries don't have access to clean water. So that's why we like what we do, because we get to see the product every day. I just look out my office window and see the Connecticut River. I've seen it go from green and red and blue and all those colors to now, I mean, I take my kayak from infield down to the plant and it's like, it's beautiful. So when you get to see that every day, it makes it all the more worthwhile. Yes, sir.
I hate to bring this up. I live near South Water Street.
Yep,
And I've always worried about the Connecticut River.
yep.
What kind of disaster planning do you have in that event that we had a flood that might?
That's why I keep my kayak at the plant. I have a way to get on a pontoon boat to support it.
Might add, don't forget the paddle.
Yeah. We have contingency plans.
No pun intended.
The last time the plant actually flooded was, I think, back in the 80s.
Yeah.
We get flooded from behind us, not from the river, but the inability of the blue ditch, if you've heard that term, blue ditch, which drains out into the river. It can't drain because the river is too high.
Yeah.
So we get flooded from the backside in. So we do have, we've raised up electrical, we've raised up things that are in that path. We've made barricades for the doors, so we know a couple days ahead of time, we put them out there because we need to try to keep the water out from coming in. And you know, water, it seeks the path of least resistance. We do have plans. The last time it got bad, we moved all the vehicles to higher ground. We had people who were concerned about being there and not being able to get out of there. We brought them home, and then some of us, seasoned veterans, just kind of hung around. And we brought in some food just in case we're stuck there for a day or two. So it always happens. I mean, there's always that possibility. And,
Sticking with the disaster theme, you mentioned your SCADA controls, and I'm assuming that the remote sensors and whatnot are all connected to the internet, the public internet. And to get back to the plant, are you regulated on the security of that? Do you get tested, or and how's that handled?
we'll let my IT department handle it.
No, it's cellular.
Yep.
We run a firewall.
So it's not public network?
No, it is not, no.
We have an integrator who we've used, EIS, we've used their company, which is just 3 guys since the early 2000s, so they're almost like family rather than contractors. So they have a VPN if they need to get in, so they can do some remote work if possible, but other than that, there's no real risk. Within the plant itself, everything's contained.
It's a closed system.
Yeah,
Exactly,
nothing's open. So we, you know, you wonder about that.
I guess there's always a possibility something can happen.
There's things we worry about. Even I hate to say this, I know we're probably on television, but you know, we collect money. We do administrative work.
Right.
You know, so we've done things like put a bulletproof glass.
Bulletproof glass.
We keep the doors locked all the time, so you can only get into the first section, things like that. So that's things people wouldn't typically, you know, you don't think about, but we have to. We're always on the alert for somebody getting in and corrupting our system, or somebody coming in who can figure things out, like, you know, we might have a $188 bill coming in or something. So those are concerns, we're aware of them.
And I just had one other question. You mentioned you have GIS capabilities. Do you publish that GIS data? And the reason why I ask is I've always thought it'd be really nice to have a GIS, the sewer service area layer for East Windsor GIS.
Yeah.
You know, for EDC, for people that are just simply trying to buy a house and they want to know,
Exactly.
is this on the sewer? Is this, you know?
That's funny. Not
Yeah,
funny.
we've had this discussion.
It's the actual, the sewer service area map should be available. The planning
Yeah,
office
that's
has it.
available, yeah.
But as GIS data, or?
They have a hard copy, and New England Geo, actually, we gave them our data, so it should be available. That gets hard because what happens is, you're looking at that map and you might be in the sewer service area, and you're going to buy a house, and the worst thing for us is somebody assumes something, that they're in the sewer service area means they're on
Doesn't
sewer.
mean there's sewers.
Still
in
might be a
front of the
septic
house.
tank, and then all of a sudden it can lead to problems. So our biggest desire, I would say, is whenever something like that's going to happen, we would really appreciate.
Just call us.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
calling down to the plant and just asking. We're right in the process now, though. All our data is very, very good. Route 140 got paved over a summer ago. So we had 50-something manholes that were all covered with 2 to 4 inches of.
Just the way the state does it, they come in and just roll over everything.
So what we had is we used the GPS, we made the GIS layer, we knew where everything was, we had aerial photographs. So when it came time to pinpoint them, I was feeling confident, and I said, Art, don't worry, I think we're going to get about 98% of them. Well, we got 100% of them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So everything was good, the data was good. So we've been working with GIS since the late 2000s. Right now, we're in the process of working with New England Geo to get much of our data, including the sewer lines, available on the town's geocortex.
Right.
There is some information, sewer information available on geocortex. The part that I think is on Art's mind is it would be a disservice for just anyone to make an assumption of a sewer line just because it's showing up on a map.
Well, certainly, and when the MLS will tell you which it is,
Yeah.
but if you're looking at a house and it's, for instance, got a failed septic system,
Right.
you want to know if you have the option.
Right.
And you don't want to have to go calling all over the place when you can
Exactly.
just pop on and
Yeah.
check real quick.
Yeah, and most things, it's, we get a lot of visitors, and the town's been really good about sending people to
Yeah.
us. So I think, and we handle things pretty quickly, they can come down at the spur of the moment.
And we work real closely with North Central. We've got a nice agreement with them, so if somebody comes in and they apply for a permit in North Central, rather than them just saying that it's on sewer, it's not on sewer, it comes to my department. We take a look at the map, we verify, are you in the sewer service area? Number one. Number two, are you, but there's not currently sewers within 100 feet of your property? And then number three, are there not any sewers at all, so it's not applicable, you have to go to the health department. We had a lot of discussions years back, when I first got here with Mike Carone in North Central, because this gets really confusing, and you don't want to give, the only thing worse than no information is misinformation, and that happened a number of times, that's why we kind of arrived at where we are right now. It only takes me a minute to look at the map and tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is or it isn't.
Wells Road is a real stick.
There you go, yeah.
Because the two ends have sewer.
Yeah,
And the
not
whole
in the middle.
middle, which needs to be sewer, isn't. So we probably get a couple calls a month where people are interested in buying homes on Wells, and then they find, because they're told, well, there's sewer on Wells, and there is, but not in that area where there's several homes.
And that's kind of what concerns us, Alan. We really don't want to give somebody the wrong information. And, so
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and right, just last week, we started working with Kristen from New England.
Yeah.
So we are in the process of getting them our newest data so that they can make the town of East Windsor's geocortex more up to date. That's correct.
Marie, you had a question?
Well, actually, I have a comment. I'm glad to see you guys are enthusiastic today as you were years ago when I took my tour down there.
Thank you.
Great job, you need to be commended, especially for the highest award that is out there for you guys to acquire. So kudos to you guys. Well, looking at your slide presentation, and as liaison for the Economic Development Commission, and the fact that they're putting a website together to try to sell East Windsor, would you mind sharing to
Not at
them
all.
your slide presentation?
I think it's a great selling
Pick and
point.
choose whatever they
Great.
want as a board. I don't want to interfere with the board decision, but I think it's a valuable tool that they can use as part of their economic development.
From my
Criteria,
career, my past experience, that's one of the most valuable things out there, because if a
Exactly.
potential client knows that they can come here, with the casino as an example, and all they needed to do was extend the sewer line a little bit, but there was capacity at the plant, capacity with the line, it just makes that so much easier for them to go to the next step. What I find my experience has shown me is that too often they come down to us at the very end after they've expended time and money and effort. It's like, what do you mean we can't connect? Or what do you mean? I use Sardelli as an example. that was assumed that there was sewer on South Water Street. There is only on a portion. That sewer was going to come out onto Wagner Lane. Unfortunately, by the time I got the plans and I reviewed it, it had already been, and we had to tell them, whoa, 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 you need, so I hate to be the person that puts a halt to things, but we're not doing it purposely. We're trying to get, as we said to Jason, at a seat at the table, so we don't leave people with, boy, that wasn't a really good thing to find out. We try to tell them ahead of time. Our time is free. We're there 8, 10 hours a day anyways, whether we're here or down there, so we invite everybody to come down and talk to us. We have everything on a computer digitized. We can show them maps. We try to answer all their questions. And
Coffee, we have coffee.
yeah, we can give them coffee, yeah. Okay.
You have another question?
I have one question. You're already 40% capacity in the sewer plant.
Yes.
All your pump stations, could they handle the added capacity to get it to the pump station? Are they adequate for the areas that they're in? Or would they have to be rebuilt or added to?
No, the last one that came up was West River Farms over on Scannick Road. Okay, that one there is our Route 5 pump station. So we did some upgrades to the pump station, but we didn't have to upsize anything. It was adequate. Oh, yeah. Okay, so North Road was another example. We went as far as we could down North Road with gravity sewer to try to eliminate having to put in a pump station. So we've got up to 18-inch PVC pipe out there. And so and at the pump station, when that pump station was built, we upsized that to what's called a triplex, usually, or a duplex pump station. We had 3 pumps put in there for the future. We also had to have 2 different size force mains because the 6-inch force main was too big for existing right now. So we had to put in a 4-inch force main. Next to that, they put in a 6-inch force main for the future. So we put a lot of thought into that. Again, so with the other stuff that's existing, we haven't seen a problem with that yet. And again, that's where we'd like to be involved at the very onset of somebody proposing something so we can let them know that there may be a cost to send it this way, send it that way. At least bring us in at the very beginning. And unfortunately, because we are at South Water Street, we're kind of like out of sight, out of mind. You know, they don't do it intentionally. We just don't. We're not at town hall, so we're not in the normal loop of things. So.
Other questions or comments? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Is there a plan for reconstruction of some of the lines that are much, much older in town?
Yes.
Like, say, Pleasant Street,
Yes.
Gardner Street, some of Main Street, North Main Street, I know is very old and has
Yes.
some issues. Is there plans?
Yes, there are plans, and I've been here 10 years, Charlie. When I first came here, the first week I was here, we were out on Pleasant Street and Gardner Street. I brought in a guy to do TV, and we saw the condition things were in. So we're aware of that. We've looked at that. It's in the planning stages. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we haven't been in a position, we've had a complete failure there. We're aware of it, and we monitor it. We now have our own little camera. We can go out there, and it's at what point in time do we pull the trigger? So we are looking into right now a thing called CIP, cured in place, slip lining. Okay, what you do is you just put a liner inside the existing pipe. You know. So that, I would say, Ed, we're thinking next year is when we tried to get the pump stations first. Mm-hmm. Then we took care of the things at the plant. Now we're going to start to go out there and address. Yeah, Pleasant Street and Gardner Street are 2 of the worst ones that we have, without a doubt.
And the reason I question that too is that there was other construction done on those roads with gas line replacement, and it would just make sense, like, say water was going to replace, that you guys, got together and said, hey, let's do it at the same time.
We usually find out they're doing that
after the fact.
Unfortunately, yeah, there's not really good communication between the different utilities. And I don't know what the answer is to that, but, yeah, I wish there could be a better coordination. When we get the call before you take tickets, when we know, oh, there's a place.
That is a good point. Right at the La Renaissance, they did some work, and they dug the road up.
Yeah.
And we have a offset joint there in our
Right
plan,
there.
which if we had known,
No.
it would have been the perfect time for us
Coordinated it to have
to
them.
fix it. But by the time we found out, it was too late.
But you would think in today's day and age with communication being so instant,
Right.
it just, I don't know what the answer is to that.
Communication's a choice as much as technology is.
You're exactly right, Jason.
If that's it, thank you, everyone.
Guys,
Thank you all for listening to us.
One of the things you've made available in the past, and if the board has interest in when the weather turns, because some of your work is outside, it'd be great to take a visit to the plant and actually.
Oh, we'd love to have
what
you
you guys
take.
do.
You actually took a tour a few years
I
back.
have, and Marie has too. I don't know
Yeah.
if Alan has.
No.
And certainly I don't think Sarah or Charlie
Yes,
has.
anytime.
But
We'd love to have you come down.
it makes what we talk about a little bit more real to actually see it in person.
It's great, yeah, and we appreciate your support and the rest of the Board of Selectmen. You've always been very cordial to us. We've been before you a number of times in different capacities, and so thank you. Thank you for listening to us for an hour.
Appreciate you guys coming. Thanks very much. Okay, so the next thing is we need to set our budget workshop dates, and that's in your packet. The way if you turn to page 2 of attachment 9B, this is modeled almost entirely after last year's schedule with 2 exceptions. The exceptions being, I'm trying to get our budget to the Board of Finance earlier than we have in the past to give them enough time to do their work and for accurate information to be shared with the public ahead of the first referendum vote. So I am pushing that a little bit earlier. The other change that I made, and I know a couple people have some conflicts with the dates that were proposed, but I combined, or I really kind of stacked up our workshop dates so that we would be doing the budget process effectively in about a week and a half's time. Just kind of basically saying, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get it done. But I do recognize that these are just dates that I threw on a page. I haven't checked with anybody on their availability. Sarah, I know you said you have a couple of conflicts that we can certainly work around. Charlie, I think you did as well. The only thing that I would ask is that we do keep in mind the February 26th date to get it to the Board of Finance, which means in order to do that, it needs to be posted in the town clerk's office by February 21st. In order to do that, we need to be done with it by February 20th. So if we could try and work around, and I'll have my presentation to you guys for February 6th. So that's kind of our window. I don't think, based on what I've seen so far with the departments that have given private presentations to me, I really don't think we're going to need all of the dates that I laid out there. I think that this is probably aggressively a 3-night exercise, probably realistically a 4-night exercise, and I think I provided 7 dates. So, and 2 of them are our regular selecting meeting nights anyway. So if we could find maybe 2 more dates outside of our regular selecting nights to try and schedule these in that time span, I think that would probably be sufficient. But again, all I was trying to do was get some numbers on a page, or some dates on a page so we could start a conversation. So Sarah, you had some conflicts, and I remember the email, but I can't remember the specific dates. So
being a florist and being Valentine's Day week, that's our busiest week of the year. So I could possibly do February 10th, but February 11th and certainly February 13th, it just would not be available.
Okay, so with that in mind, does February 10th work for everybody?
That works for me.
Okay, so we'll keep the 10th, we'll scratch the 11th and 13th.
And what times do we want to do, 7 or?
I'd like to do them earlier because we're going to need to, and that's a good question. What is the earliest that folks can start? The reason being is we're going to have department heads come in and do their presentations and schedule those out.
The earliest I could be here is 5:15.
Okay, so we'll call that 5:30.
Okay.
Anybody have trouble getting here for 5:30?
It's tight, but I can do it.
Speak down, because if you want to push it to 6, we can do that.
No, let's do it. It's only a few meetings, so.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we'll aim to start our workshops at 5:30.
Okay.
We will do the 10th. We will not do the 11th or the 13th, and I'm guessing by inclusion we'll also omit the 12th, because that just seems silly. I would like to think we all have plans on the 14th, and that's a Friday anyway, so we could do, there's a holiday there. Peg, do you know which day the holiday is?
17th.
17th.
President's Day is the 17th.
Okay, so we could still do one on the 17th, but it wouldn't be for departments. It would be for, we could do that one for the volunteer organizations to come and do their presentation. That I don't think would, go ahead.
You might get, like, Wells Point Fire might not object to doing the 17.
Right, they're not staff. So
Right,
I'm
that's
saying,
what I mean,
I don't want to
like-
bring in town staff
Right,
in.
that's right.
So what I was thinking is we could do the fire departments, the libraries, the cemetery, those groups,
Yeah,
depending on availability. So do we want to try for the 17th?
I'm fine with the 17.
Sure, that works for me.
Does that conflict with anybody?
Good.
That's fine.
Same time?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Does the 18th work?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. I was told yes.
Is it just like, is it your birthday or your
That's
wife's
hers.
birthday? Oh, very, you're sure that works?
Yep, I was told it worked.
I gotta tell you, that wouldn't work at my house.
Just gotta get a better present than normal.
Okay, so we would keep
Actually
that.
get one?
So, wow.
You know, you're being recorded, Charlie.
So, all right, so we would do the 10th, 17th, 18th, and 20th. Does that work? And the date to get it to the Board of Finance for the 26th is really a best effort. I'd like to make that, but if something should happen and circumstances don't allow, it's not the end of the world. But it is a good goal for us to try and get that done as quickly as possible. Peg, with those dates in mind, are you available?
You have to tell me the days. I
10?
said it was going to be the 10th.
10?
What is the 17th? Is it?
It's a Monday.
It's Monday. 10, 17, 18, 20.
18.
It's Tuesday.
Yes, that's okay.
You sure? You want to check and let me know?
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll do, we do have to do a public hearing before I even present my budget, which is, you know, it's a weird process, but, so typically we do that jointly with the Board of Education. They have asked that we consider doing that on February 4th for two reasons. We could do it at the high school just before our informational forum on the Special Service District. And the hope is that the interest from one event may bleed over to another. So it does kind of make some sense to try and co-locate those. So if you guys are amenable, I'll go ahead and let them know that we're okay with that.
And what time would that be?
The public hearing would be at 6, the informational forum would be at 6:30.
Okay.
That, if passes prologue, will be more than enough time.
The second?
4.
Fourth.
Okay. That said, I think we have a plan. Approval of tax refunds.
I move that we approve the tax refunds in the amount of $362.19.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Selectmen's reports. Oh, I'm sorry, public participation. This is the public's second opportunity to address the board. Is there any public who would like to speak?
Choose the after.
It's after.
Yeah.
More got it.
Oh, yeah. I owe Charlie $1 anyway. I had committed to him at the outset of the meeting that we would all be home by 8:20. And I owe him $1. Okay. Over the last 2 weeks, I've completed initial meetings with department and agency heads regarding their budget requests for the next fiscal year. The next step is for me to complete my budget recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, which, as I said, I hope to have posted by the end of next week for an initial public hearing on February 4th and a formal presentation to the Board of Selectmen on February 6th. As we move beyond that, the board will hold a series of budget workshops to review department and agency submissions and my recommendations. These workshops will be held in the town, right here in the town meeting room, so that they can be recorded and viewed by the public. I've offered to make the town hall meeting room available to the Board of Education for their workshops as well, so that their workshops can be recorded and viewed by the public. The town assessor has completed our initial grand list submission for this year, which she did more than 3 weeks ahead of schedule. That's a big lift, and it's worth noting that she got it done 3 weeks early. The initial update shows that we realized a modest positive growth of $15 million, or roughly 1.6% on the grand list year. This is still subject to the assessment appeals process, but it is a good upward trend. Town Clerk Joanne Slater has indicated her intention to retire at the end of July. Joanne has been with the town since 2006 and served in her current capacity since 2010. She grew up here in town and has spent the last 14 years serving our community, so it certainly will be sad to see her go, but we certainly wish her many happy years ahead. Because she's been kind enough to give me effectively 6 months lead time, what that hopefully will do is allow her to play a role in the selection of her successor, which is great. It also provides at least some opportunity that there might be overlap between Joanne and her current role and whoever her successor is, so that there would be at least a couple weeks for cross-training and a handoff. So that's something that, in my experience in government, you always hope for and very seldom achieve. I'm hopeful that this time might be the exception to the rule. On January 14th, the emergency management team met to get me up to speed on how the town responds in emergency circumstances and what steps we need to do now to prepare for those before they happen. I was really impressed with the professionalism and preparedness of the town departments and agencies that were represented, including the police department, WPCA, community services, the town treasurer, public works, both fire departments, emergency management personnel, the ambulance association, the housing authority, the school district, and the deputy first selectman. On January 15th, it was my pleasure to be invited to serve as the honorary team captain for the East Windsor High School boys basketball team as they took on the Civic Leadership Academy. I was even invited to visit with them ahead of the game and join in the pre-game ceremony and the announcements. I'd like to thank Coach Gelsomino and Coach Wilkins for the invitation, and the team put up a win against Civic Leadership, so that was nice to see too. On the 21st, the Senior Center hosted its monthly coffee with the First Selectmen. These have proven to be a great opportunity to engage with constituents who typically aren't able to attend evening meetings, to hear from them and to share information. We talked about topics as far-reaching as the casino, good farming practices, the splash pad, and ideas around the budget. They were actually very supportive of the splash pad, by the way. They were smiles and positive nods. They were excited to see that go through, so that was great. That same day, I set up a presentation from CROG to come and do their Route 5 study presentation to the seniors, because again, many of them aren't able to drive to evening meetings and so weren't able to join us last night. Later that evening, the pension board met and held its quarterly meeting. I'll let Alan report on that in his report. Yesterday, I attended the CROG Policy Board meeting in Hartford with more than 20 other municipal CEOs. At the meeting, there was a presentation from an organization called Connecticut Data Haven about their latest report. They work to collect all kinds of data to produce the Greater Hartford Community Wellbeing Index, which serves as a resource that a lot of communities can use, particularly in grant applications, to show that towns qualify under certain different criteria. In my Selectmen's report, I've included a link to that report so people can take a look at that at their leisure. I also have one hard copy. If anybody would like to peruse through it, please feel free. Just make sure that I get it back, please. When I got back to the office yesterday, Melissa Maltesi and I met with a representative of the Willimantic Chronicle to talk about enlisting their help in producing a community newsletter with the intention that it would be distributed to each home in the community on what hopefully will be a quarterly basis and supported through ad sales. I brought an example of one of the publications that they do in Colchester to show what the opportunities are. This is an idea I borrowed from the town of Tolland. They put out, I think they do it twice a year, also 100% ad supported. But it's an opportunity to highlight happenings in different departments in town to show what the school district is working on, to recognize civic groups in the community, and it's supported by advertisers in the community. The Chronicle helps with the editorial generation. They do the layout, they do the printing, they do the distribution. But it's a great way for us to tell our story about some good things that are happening in the community. There is a letter of intent and a contract commitment that will come of that, so that's something I'll bring before you guys at our February meeting for your feedback. And if it looks like it's something doable, I'll ask for your approval too. If anybody would like to take a look at that, that's great. Last night, CROG presented their initial Route 5 study project, which sought to look at future best uses of Route 5 and what steps can or should be taken to address ongoing traffic issues there, as well as to prepare for future growth. As a reminder to the board, the superintendent has graciously offered to provide any member of our board who's interested with a tour of the schools. Because this can be somewhat disruptive to students if it's not well coordinated, she's asked that I remind you guys to let her know by the end of next week if you're interested in touring. Marie, I know you had reached out and suggested that you were. So if you guys are interested and available, we just need to coordinate a date for us to go and visit so that it's kind of, they know it's coming and it's not overly disruptive to the school day. And it would be during the school day, so it's a during the day thing, to be clear. I've made a commitment to reach out and visit with businesses in our community as best as I'm able. When I do these visits, I'm typically starting conversations by asking a few pretty basic questions. What are we doing right as a town government to support businesses in our community? What can we be doing better? How can we attract new businesses to town? And over the last 2 weeks, I've visited with folks at Geisler's, J.R. Rousseau and Associates, New England Auto and Truck, Collins Company, and InfoShred. At each of these, I've been grateful to the businesses to invite me in to show a real level of hospitality and engage in what I consider to be pretty meaningful conversations. This is a practice I'm hoping to continue moving forward. Jim at the Chamber of Commerce has graciously provided me with some initial contacts, and I think Melissa has reached out saying I would like some more, please. Because they're, I've either been to or scheduled everybody that you've recommended so far. And it's part of getting a sense of our business climate in town, both to support businesses that we have and try and figure out how we can make East Windsor as attractive for businesses that might be coming here as possible. So that's been a pretty aggressive focus. There are 3 events coming up that I want to draw people's attention to. The first one, as Jillian mentioned, is this Sunday. The Keep America Beautiful organization is working with the Beautification Committee to provide a community training. That's going to be at the Osborne House, the public piece of which is from 1 to 2. On Tuesday, February 4th, we all will be holding an informational forum concerning the potential formation of a special services district to provide fire services in the Broadwick section of town. And the informational forum will be at the high school starting at 6:30. And finally, once again, I'm going to plug Abby's Helping Hands Winter Gala, which is going to be on February 15th at Manili's in South Windsor. I certainly hope to see you there. That's all I have. Respectfully submitted. Next is Marie.
Hi. I'm going to do my best to project my voice. Thank you. Over the last 2 weeks, I have had problems with my personal internet and home telephone. Glad to report it is finally fixed properly. If anyone has tried to reach me on either forum, please accept my apologies. I've also been aware that my voice hasn't been projecting loud enough in the back. Without getting into medical issues, I will do my best to position myself under the hanging mic, and as you see, it's not working. Under the hanging mics in the room. I would appreciate any input after tonight's meeting, so if it doesn't work, I'll go out and purchase a microphone so that I could readily have it available. On January 14th, 2020, I attended the Emergency Management Informational and Training Forum at the East Windsor Police Department in the morning. On the 14th, I attended the Park and Recreation meeting where they discussed their 2020 and 2021 budget and financial review. Sexual harassment classes are now mandatory per the state of Connecticut for all staff members to include their seasonal staff. April 4th, 2020 date has been set aside for the Easter Bunny breakfast, and they made a $700 donation to the youth basketball program in town. Also on January 14th, I arrived late due to the above-mentioned meeting. I was able to attend most of the planning and zoning meeting. I defer to Selectman Baker for his report tonight. January 15th, the Broadbrook Mill Site Remediation Committee that I attended provided me with background information of where things stand with Cullen Aerospace. Around September or October, communication has broken down, although attempts via telephone calls have been not returned. Therefore, the committee is looking for the Board of Selectmen for input. Where do they go from here? They're looking to be placed on our next agenda, and I would defer that to you. I believe they reached out to you also, either the same day or the next day, but they wanted to make the board aware of that. On January 20th, I planned to attend the Warehouse Point Fire District special meeting, but due to not feeling well, I was unable to attend it. But I did read their minutes, and I have some concerns and questions. On January 22nd, I attended the public information meeting, number 1 of the Route 5 corridor study, held by the Department of Transportation. I found the question and answer session very informative. The audience asked questions and shared ideas for improvement. I thank them for speaking up. Respectfully submitted, Marie E. D'Souza. I was approached this evening, which isn't part of the report, but I was approached this evening by Jim Barton, who's willing to sit down with me so that we can sit down and discuss that whole fire department scenario. So with due respect to the board, would like a consensus to make sure that everybody doesn't have an issue with that. And then I'll bring forth back any information deemed appropriate. But I find if I meet, it saves a lot of research because they have the knowledge, and because I've been sick over the last few years, I haven't attended a lot of stuff, and I did follow through on some things, so this way it'll bring me up to date so that we're not redundant at meetings. So,
Sure.
If nobody has any objections, I'll get with Jim after the 1st of February. Did you hear me back there?
So I should probably share, we did have the sound system not upgraded, but repaired. So you should notice that it actually is amplifying now. And that microphone there is going to be moved 1 tile over so that everything will be, and that one too will be moved 1 tile over. So we'll have them every other.
All right.
They were just in this afternoon getting that up to speed. So that should be something that's fixed.
Much better.
We have a little bit of a feedback thing we got to tweak, but you know, growing pains, and it is better than it was, and we'll get it to where it needs to be. The trouble is when we test it, it's an empty room, so the acoustics are different. Selectman Baker.
Planning and Zoning Commission, they had another visit from Terry Hahn, the consultants that are doing the Warehouse Point study. And I just wanted to mention that since, you know, we are doing the Route 5 corridor study, and then there's also the Warehouse Point study, those 2 sets of consultants are talking to each other and incorporating things from each plan into that, so that was good to hear. But anyway, they were kind of focusing in this past week on the Blue Ditch watershed and the stormwater improvement that could be done or would need to be done if there was added development there. Currently, the previous cover allotments for the zones, for our zoning map, are not maxed, but if we were approving near those levels, the Blue Ditch would need improvements to handle it, so it's something that we'll have to deal with at some point in time if we want to do additional development. So anyway, they're working on future land use map that I did send copies of the drafts to all the selectmen because they thought they were pretty interesting. They'll be coming to us and they'll be finishing up that stuff in the next couple months, so no big rush there, but there is some interesting things it was handed out at the meeting. It is public information if anybody's interested in. A representative for DDG Group Enterprises, which was Sardilli's, they came in and just wanted to, they were getting their permit renewed, which they did get renewed. Even though they're not building there, That land has a lot of value. The fact that it has all the permits that are needed, and they wanted to just say they had a deal in the works, something's going to be happening there. And they wanted to actually make sure that they reached out to the town of East Windsor and thank us for our professionalism and efficiency in making the process as smooth as possible. And I think staff at Town Hall and the appointed members of the land use boards that worked on that project should be commended for their work, because that did actually go quite well, and didn't work out for us in that situation, but it's going to work out for us anyway. Residents from Meadow Farms reported longstanding issues with developer performance. A lot of work is not completed there. The developer is no longer a developer. The road is in bad shape. It's still in private hands. It's not able to be accepted by town. So there's trouble there. Research is being done on the situation, and it could possibly land on our agenda, so I wanted to bring it up. So more to come possibly on that. I, like about 55 other people, went to the Route 5 corridor study, and most of the people in this room were there. The nice thing, two things I want to mention, all 5 of us were there, which was really good to see, so everyone's up to speed with what's going on there. And I think the main takeaway was when it does become a final plan, they'll be giving us proposals and suggestions for enhancements with dollars tied to those proposals. And it'll be up to us and our state reps and whatnot to somehow make that happen this time. I know that we see these things every now and then, and it seems like they never happen. And of course, we got to get the money somewhere. So hopefully we can keep the focus beyond this administration to the next, because these things take maybe 5-10 years to get done, and that's why they don't get done. Is I think there's not a lot of institutional knowledge that gets carried over when we lose that focus. I was at the Board of Finance meeting. Somebody else's, I forget whose, I'll let them deal with that. But one thing that interests me there was talk of a suggestion from the auditors for a cybersecurity audit, something that I've dealt with extensively in my 30 years in the business, and I think it's something we should consider. I did speak to our IT guy at length about it after the meeting, and I'm confident he's paying attention to the risks, but there is a lot of ways to get in trouble there, so we should not take it lightly.
Kermit's doing a cybersecurity training as part of their annual meeting at the end of the month.
Yeah, we
More
need
information, I'll let you know.
Yeah, there's other, I'll talk to you about some other stuff too. So anyway, went to the pension board, which meets quarterly. I'm a representative for the Board of Selectmen for that. They reported, Webster Bank, who deals with our pension, is right now reported that we had a 20.01 return in 2019. Our OPEB had a 20.63% return, so those are, pretty good. So, but don't get excited, over a 5-year period, I think it was like 8.8 or something like that. But still, very good, and above our interest rate assumption, so a very healthy plan. They're holding steady with their current portfolio mix unless things change, and so more to come on that. They also discussed an email from Milliman, who also does some work for us, and the mortality tables are changing, and so we're going to have to go back and look at our assumptions for the pension. They are recommending a modest reduction in the interest rate assumption, and so of course that changes the town's payment, so that affects us from a budgetary standpoint. The pension is presently 81.8% funded, which is pretty darn good. The board is really shooting for close to 100. There's 11 years remaining on a 20-year amortization period. There's still $5.7 million left of unfunded liability back from the day when things weren't so well run. So that's, like the state is doing a catch-up, we're actually going to get our catch-up, and so it's getting close. We're, $5.7 million left on that part. For instance, last year, the town made a $1.344 million total contribution. $597,000 of that was last year's prior service cost, which is that unfunded liability piece. So, a little over $500,000 a year getting chopped away on that, so we'll get there. So anyway, a decision needs to be made soon about how to take in the new information and adjust our payment on a yearly basis. And there'll be a special meeting on 1/28 at 4:30 here at the town hall if anybody's interested in that. And then I think the other stuff that I've got was mentioned before, so I'll leave it at that. Anybody has any questions? email me at abaker@eastwindsorct.com or whatever.
Selectman Nordell?
Yes. So I also, of course, attended the Route 5 corridor study. I feel there are many issues along the 5-mile stretch of state road from Enfield to South Windsor, and hope that with this study, they will be finding solutions and remedying those issues. Everybody else has said quite enough on that subject. Also last night I attended my first beautification committee meeting. I want to thank them for rearranging their schedule to accommodate me, because I was unable to be their liaison because I had a conflict of meetings. So they were nice enough to change their meeting date so that I could start attending those. This Sunday, as was mentioned, they have their Keep America Beautiful training at the Osborne House at 1 o'clock. And the committee is also looking into entering a contest presented by HGTV for a town makeover. This committee is still seeking members, so if anyone is interested, please apply at Town Hall. Upcoming events, January 25th at 11 a.m. at the high school, the Booster Club will be doing an official presentation of the new electronic sign that the Booster Club worked very hard on for many years to raise enough funds to purchase and have that sign installed. It looks really good. So I hope they have great success with that. January 29th at 6 p.m., the East Windsor High School Music Department will be hosting a fundraiser at the high school. Music students will be performing various acts showing off their talents. They're going to provide food and coffee and hot chocolate. Tickets are $10 a piece, and the proceeds are going to be used to help fund upcoming music department trips that they will be taking to various things like the Big E and things like that they do. The East Windsor PTO is trying to host a family glow dance on February 13th. This was supposed to be this week, but they put it off to February 13th due to a lack of volunteers. They still desperately have that problem, needing people to help with this event, run it, and help and assist with running the event itself. The PTO does few fundraisers, but the ones they do are very successful at raising money for the grammar and middle school. These funds are used to help purchase extra enrichment items and supplies that the Board of Ed budget can't afford. Some items in the past years have included new basketball boards for the gymnasium, musical instruments, sound and PA systems. So if anybody is interested with that, you can go to PTO's Facebook page and volunteer for that. East Windsor Little League and Junior Baseball registration is now open for the 2020 season, and you can sign your child up online or on Facebook. And I believe AHRC will be holding a hike Super Bowl Sunday.
Scannick River Watershed.
Scannick River, right. Yeah, it's going to start at Powder Mill Barn in Enfield. So this is a great chance to work off some of those calories you'll be getting when you drink all that beer and eat all those wings watching the great commercials.
Wait. Wings have calories?
Not if you don't count.
That's where things have gone awry.
Sorry.
Selectman Musket.
On Wednesday, January 15th, the Board of Finance held their regular monthly meeting. There was discussion of a Warehouse Point Fire District fiscal year 18-19 deficit in the amount of $10,149. This was brought up by our town auditors on December 16th of 2019 on page 68 of their report. The town pays 100% of the taxes for the fire district in July, and then we recoup it. However, things were included in the grand list that shouldn't have been, so more money was paid out than should have been. The adjustments were made in August and September after the money was already given. Taxes got abated because there were exemptions that were not included on the grand list, leaving them in a deficit. The Board of Finance has decided to leave this alone at the moment and will reevaluate this situation in June. On Monday, January 20th, the Warehouse Point Fire District held their first budget workshop. The commissioners began discussion of future plans for growth and started making adjustments to their line items. There was discussion of possibilities of purchasing a new truck, possible addition to Station 1, and adding part-time staff to Monday nights and weekend day shifts. Their next scheduled budget workshop is Monday, January 27th at 7 p.m. Last night, as you all heard, I attended the forum on the Route 5 corridor study, a presentation put on by CROG and Trans Systems at the high school. A study group was put together 5 years ago to evaluate and analyze the Route 5 corridor, an approximate 5-mile stretch from South Windsor to the Enfield line. The goals of the study included safety, congestion, mobility, and to provide for economic growth. The parties involved plan to wrap things up in May and hope to host another presentation similar to last night. And this will be our template used in decision making, and most of the plan has a design year of the year 2040. Following the presentation, I attended the Board of Education meeting, which was down the hall. The room was filled as the second quarter outstanding students were recognized, as well as the Crystal Apple Award recipients from all 3 buildings. For those of you that aren't aware, the Crystal Apple Award is provided by David Mosier and Horace Mann Insurance, recognizing a staff member nominated by their peers for going above and beyond and adding a positive impact to the school in which they are employed. After 2 rounds of interviews, the board was proud to hire a new high school principal, Allison Anderson. Ms. Anderson is currently the assistant principal and master scheduler at East Hartford High School, and she also served as the math department chairman, taught pre-K and, pre-algebra and AP calculus 8 years prior to that, also at East Hartford High School. Ms. Anderson also coached girls basketball and cross country. I had the pleasure of meeting her and welcoming her to East Windsor last night. I'm excited that her background in management and experience will make her a great addition to East Windsor High School, and the Board of Education did issue a press release on her appointment today. Dr. DeBarge shared a letter that the East Windsor School District had received from the Hartford Public School System dated December 17th, 2019 in regards to the choice program. Hartford Public Schools expects our district to prove residency for the special needs students that come to East Windsor schools through the choice program. This is not current practice and is not the responsibility of East Windsor. Per state statute, CREC is responsible for determining program eligibility for participants in the open choice program. Dr. DeBarge has responded to the letter stating East Windsor will not comply with this request because it is discriminatory, as only Hartford special needs students have been targeted, and the request comes mid-year after half of the services have already been provided. The estimated revenue from this is approximately $760,000, and Hartford Public Schools is essentially trying to withhold the reimbursement of these funds for education that we are already providing for their special needs students. It is important to note that this letter was sent to other districts, not just East Windsor, and CREC, the Connecticut State Department of Education Chief Financial Officer, and the legal director for the CSDE Bureau of Legal and Governmental Affairs were copied on East Windsor's response to Hartford Public Schools. There will be a legislative update with Representatives Christopher Davis and Carol Hall on this Saturday from 12:30 to 2 at Problem Solve Brewing Company for those of you that are interested in what's occurring at the state level. And that's all that I have.
So with that, we'll turn to our second public participation. Mr. Anderson, name and address, please.
89 Main Street, Broadbrook. I'm sure you're all excited now about the WPCA thing, so we have a meeting on Wednesday, 7 o'clock, and we have coffee. But there are 2 infrastructures collapsing in town. I don't know the implication of this, but the bridge between Stiles Road and Mill Street, which strangely enough is not the Stiles Bridge, is collapsing into the Broad. I don't think that's something that's supposed to happen. I don't know the answer, I'm pointing it out. You guys figure it out, have a good time. The other thing that's collapsing is the structure at the filter beds. Well, that area is sort of fenced off. The old greenhouse thing that was part of the filter beds down on Mill Street at the pump station down there. That was our sewage treatment plant for Broadbrook for many years. That is collapsing. I don't know if it's a hazard, I'm pointing it out. It should be looked at. If it's not an issue, fine. If it is an issue, you're aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Name and address, please, sir.
Jim Richards, 27 Pleasant Street, East Windsor. First, I want to say how enjoyable the Board of Selectmen's meeting is. I've been to many over the years, and this group here is very positive, very constructive, and in moving forward our town. The second thing I wanted to comment on, it was during the discussion of the Broadbrook Library. There's many ordinances that I saw, especially that one, in regards to who actually does the audit, who can waive it. I encourage you to look at it again, because I looked at it over the weekend. And you commented earlier that the ordinances might be looked at this year. There's quite a few of them that have become out of date. And if we're going to be looking at a charter revision, a lot of ordinances are based on what's not in the charter. So if it's something we want to get rid of completely, I would advise, I know you got budgets, I'm not saying it's got to be done tomorrow, but it really is, some of these ordinances are outdated. They worked in their time, and so I was glad to hear that somebody was thinking about looking at it, and I would encourage it. The last thing is, after reading that ordinance, there's probably 3 entities in town, or maybe 5, that get money from the town that aren't already audited. So essentially, the audit is directed, in other words, any town agency, any town department, et cetera, would be audited. But the other ones, there are 5 of them in my head, most are nonprofit. And so the ordinance itself is really penalizing the nonprofits who might not be normally, benefited by these things. So I'm just bringing, Cemetery Association, we did waive it in the past, I wanted to put that forth. And I think that was a good thing because it was the same problem. They're operating on a cemetery, for instance, operates on a thin budget and profit margin.
So just, because I'm blocked at 3, where are the 5 that you have?
Well, one would be the 2 libraries.
Yep.
They're not town entities. Another would be the Warehouse Point Fire Department.
Okay.
If they were coming for money. And obviously they audit themselves. I've never questioned their money, but I'm just saying. And I'm really out of stretch to try to figure out a few more. If the Historical Society came to you for any money at some point, they would be another. There was a real stretch in my head to figure out how many really are affected by that. So that would make the ordinance itself, it's kind of, and the truth is, I believe that the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance at any point on any budget request has the authority to request anything like that. I don't think it's something where you have to, do it with everyone that comes before you. But if somebody walks in and says, I want $500,000, well, common sense says, well, we want to see some books or something. So that, I think that's kind of, it takes away the authority, the ordinance takes away the authority and the, I don't know the term, of both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to make good judgment calls in regards to things like that. That's all. But other than that, everything's very positive. I'm very excited that I get an opportunity to sell a positive town, and I know that the business community has been going, wow, what a change. So thank you to the entire Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, sir. Name and address.
Tom Telly, 23 Rice Road. You guys all attended the CROG meeting last night, and I think we all forgot to mention one thing, that we are looking at having the lights fixed on Route 5.
I left that for Jason's report, and he didn't even bring it up.
I reported on it already.
But I think that's a very important thing to notice.
We're meeting with DOT in the morning.
But I'm just saying, it's moving forward at least. There's something there. Because I know I go out on Abbey Road at 5 minutes, 5 after 6, and I sit there at a long light for, there's not a car in sight. It is the most irritating thing in the world. And if you can get there before 6, it's flashing. If you get there at 6:01, you're done.
Len Norton and I are meeting with DOT in the morning. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Bob Like, 80 Rye Street, East Windsor. I'm exuberant, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we've all known, everybody that's active in town, the assets that we have in public works and public safety. Tonight, a sleeping giant was awakened that we need to take advantage of. Most people weren't surprised at 60% sewer capacity that have been visiting and watching it. The challenge is, and you echoed it, Mr. First Selectman, when Art and Ed both referred to it, communication. To me, we're going to have a 5-year game plan on the Economic Development Commission. We're going to put every person, every board and commission in town should be part of that 5-year game plan for economic development. We've got a real good addition tonight to those people being team members. I didn't know there was such a thing as water pollution control, water pollution.
WPC.
That's
facility.
Facility, okay.
I was going with fun in my head. I assume that's how you guys fund.
Well, it all comes down to it. The funding is possible because of the way the facility is run. And boy, they set a shining example. They really do. So I'm going to make sure that the slide presentation that they have is part of the website that the EDC is developing. Ask them to be part of the team as well as every other board and commission in town. You know, we got a lot to sell in this town. We're getting a lot of help from department heads right now. We're going to fill 2 vacancies on that board and go full speed ahead, because I will repeat myself again. There's only 2 ways to balance the budget. Cut costs, fire people, lay off school teachers, and have all kinds of problems, or increase revenues by selling this town.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay. So the next thing, we will have an executive session. I'd entertain a motion to enter into that.
Move to head into executive session.
That's something.
Motion was made by Marie, seconded by Sarah.
That's fine.
That's from my
Go into executive session. All opposed, no. Thank you. It is 9:08.
I was trying to save my voice.
You're fine.
You will have to forgot what you said.
Can't hear you.
Well, yeah, they want to get done quickly.
They're pushing me a little bit.
Everything is right. There we go.